Hello and welcome to the arcade. You know, video games were originally designed to be played by multiple people at the same time, tennis for two being the earliest example that I can think of. Heck, games in general were always designed to have two or more human beings playing at the same time, dating all the way back to the royal game of Ur in 177 BC.
Multiplayer seems to be the primary choice of most gamers these days, with 9 of the top 10 games on the Steam DB charts being multiplayer games, and the only exception in that list being Baldur's Gate 3. And the further you scroll down the list, the higher the percentage goes up of which games are multiplayer versus just single player only. Some of the really popular games in the zeitgeist right now are online co-op games like Helldivers 2 and Destiny 2, online versus games like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and PUBG, and couch co-op games like Overcooked, It Takes Two, and Portal 2, and versus couch games like Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, Gran Turismo 7. Popular MMOs like World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Final Fantasy XIV, and EVE Online are full of tons of players all playing at the same time and interacting with each other and the world all in real time. And even for me, card games have evolved from something like playing solitaire by myself to playing Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena against other real people around the world. But as an introvert, sometimes I'll discover a game that I want to play and then realize it's intended to be a multiplayer experience, and then, at least at first, I get kind of bummed out. My free time and my game time is supposed to be about avoiding other people, not the other way around. But if I really think about it, I've never really had a problem with playing multiplayer games alone. Even if that means I'll never optimize my gameplay, or even if it means that I'll never experience the game the way the developers fully intended. Sometimes that's just what I prefer, and I'd rather enjoy a game some than not at all, and if playing it alone is the only way I enjoy it, then so be it. Some early examples from my childhood would be games like Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. These games have split-screen multiplayer where you can play either with or against someone else in the same room, and they have online multiplayer too. But I really just like playing against bots. Sure, there are times when I'd prefer to play something with my brothers or with my friends, but we don't always have the time to sync up together as we've gotten older and taken more responsibilities in our lives. So even back in the day, I'd just play shooters against bots. Battlefield 1942, Battlefront 1 and 2, Unreal Tournament 2004, Killzone, and Left 4 Dead were some of my favorite shooters, and I almost never played against or with a real person. I also loved playing the arcade mode of fighting games like One Must Fall and Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Deception. When I was younger, I had a love-hate relationship with the pressure of performing well alongside a team or going one-on-one against a friend or brother or random person online. I really just didn't have that competitive spirit. I didn't feel the need to beat everyone else. I just played the games for the fun of it, and when other people started to take things too seriously, it really dampened the fun for me. When I got a little older though, like 14, 15, that changed pretty heavily. In the Wii, PS3, Xbox 360 era of consoles, I played so many multiplayer games, and almost exclusively against other real players. Some of my go-to games were Call of Duty Black Ops 1 and 2, Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 3, Killzone 3, Halo Reach, and Halo 4. These were all games that I was obsessed with playing as much multiplayer as I could. Sometimes I'd solo queue, but most of the time I'd be playing with my brother and a group of friends. A lot of the times it felt like a great communal event, and those are times that I fondly remember. But the games themselves just didn't last for me. Most of those games I wouldn't really call my favorites, and while the times were great, the games haven't really aged the same as my good memories of playing them with my friends. There's one big one that's sort of an outlier though, when I got a little bit older and started playing Hearthstone. Back in 2014, my little brother introduced me to the game, and at the same time, a lot of the StarCraft streamers and YouTubers that I watched were switching over to it, so I kinda jumped on board with that pretty quickly. And I became addicted to Hearthstone, and I was trying to be as extremely competitive as I could as a mostly free-to-play player, at least at the beginning. I would typically end most of my season finishes around rank 7, 6, or 5, but my highest finish was in 2015 when I hit rank 3 with the infamous Secret Paladin deck from the Grand Tournament expansion. And after failing my goal to hit Legend with that deck before the season reset, I lost basically all of my competitive drive for Hearthstone and pretty much all video games in general at that moment. I tried and quit out of Overwatch, Apex Legends, Valorant, Warzone, and eventually even things like Halo Infinite and Rogue Company. I did continue to play Hearthstone until around 2020, but I never got back above rank 5 in Wild or in Standard. Things changed for me with my relationship with Hearthstone this year though. In 2024 is when I finally hit Legend in Hearthstone for the first time, accomplishing my 10-year-long goal of reaching the top ranks of what was at one point my absolute favorite game. I don't know how much longer I'll play Hearthstone, but I'm glad I came back to it just to at least finally get to Legend rank. This video seems like it just took kind of a weird turn, so I'm going to try to steer us back into the right direction a little bit. I've talked about games that I quit playing, and really that was never the game's fault. It was mine for just not really having that competitive drive to keep grinding the ladder or whatever. So next I want to talk about games that you can play in multiplayer while you don't necessarily have to, but you would arguably have a better or at least easier time playing multiplayer rather than solo. Back in 2006 or maybe 2007, my best friend and I were really into Guild Wars. There was a ton of content that you could do alone, but we made a lot of effort to continually play together as much as we could. We both had multiple maxed out characters, had bought and completed all the expansions, but we never really kept up with the game after beating the last expansion that we both bought. But there's a lot in Guild Wars that you can just do on your own. Aside from the big endgame raids, I'd say most of the quests are probably doable completely by yourself in Guild Wars. As long as you go in with the right equipment and abilities, it's not hard to complete most of Guild Wars by yourself. RuneScape was another one that I was obsessed with as a kid. My twin brother and my younger sister were also just as obsessed as I was, and we played it a ton. But we never really got to play it together. Since we only had one computer in the house, we had to take turns. So there was never really anyone to team up with while playing RuneScape. But sometimes it was really just nice existing and living in that world that RuneScape created. While it's definitely easier to earn more gold and level up quicker by playing and trading with other real people, there's still plenty of ways to gain gold and experience alone. One thing I really like about RuneScape is how you automatically level up in the skill that you're using. For example, you can only become a better fisherman by actually fishing, and the same goes for mining, combat, tree cutting, etc. And that's something that actually makes for a really satisfying solo experience. But I believe that the very best gaming franchise that fits this description of games you can play alone but is probably easier with other players is Monster Hunter. Heck, it's just the best franchise. And if you've seen my older video here, you know that I've played a lot of Monster Hunter in my day. And I'm not sure if I even mentioned it at all, but probably more than 80% of my Monster Hunter experience has been completely solo. Other than playing through Monster Hunter 3 with my best friend and Monster Hunter World with my little brother, I don't think I've played much multiplayer Monster Hunter at all. Monster Hunter 1, Freedom 2, Freedom Unite, 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, Generations Ultimate, and Monster Hunter Rise, I have played almost exclusively solo. Monster Hunter is just one of those franchises that is so easy to get immersed in. From the seascapes of Moga Village to the snowy peaks of Poke Village, every area in the different Monster Hunter games has so much personality. And that personality really helps you get attached to the game, the world, and to everyone and everything in it. Your character is fully your own, and some of the games even let you customize your house or your room in some way or another. Monster Hunter just feels like such a personal experience when you play it alone. That said, it can always be super fun to team up with other real players too, but the true immersion and I believe the true essence of Monster Hunter is you. You are the hunter. You decide how you want to approach quests, what armor you want, what weapons you use, and then it's just you versus the monster in the end. And now the question is why? Why play alone in these games that have such a great multiplayer component? And while I think I've briefly touched on some of the reasons why I and so many other players like to play alone, I think the biggest reason is the freedom. If I'm playing alone, I'm not bound to someone else's playstyle, preference, direction, or obstruction. The pressure is all on me, yes, but also even if I fail, no one else fails because of me. I can choose what missions and hunts I want to go on in Monster Hunter. I can customize the maps and modes of Star Wars Battlefront. I can do anything, and I don't need to worry about what anyone else is up to at the time. I also can use the solo time as a way to improve my skills and practice without any added pressure at all. And I think that freedom of playing multiplayer games alone is something that a lot of people love to experience, and how they like to express their creativity by just letting ideas flow and following them as they come to you. Even if you're just expressing that through playing a game, it's still a very satisfying feeling.
So now that I've rambled on for way too long, I would love to hear what you had to say. What do you think is the biggest reason that people play multiplayer games alone? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.